Alrighty, welcome everyone. We are talking about the power of now this evening, and we're going to go into a few tools to help deepen our practice of presence and look at another tool that helps us address when we have resistance to being present or really resistance to anything. And so I'm going to start here with a quote that I recently came across, but I'm not allowed to minimize. Here we go. So I recently came across this by Richard Rudd, and he says, "Presence is the only thing that heals and transforms." And I love that because it's so true that in order to heal, in order to transform, in order to create any type of change, we have to be able to become present with ourselves, and we have to be aware with the dynamics involved in healing and transformation. And the present moment is also where we find our own presence, our own awareness. And the presence that we are in a particular moment is our true self. And some of this may sound abstract, but it's very practical at the same time. So just talking a little bit more about what our presence is or what our awareness is. Our awareness, or simply our consciousness, is the only part of us that has not changed since the time we were born. I'm not even going to talk about pre-birth or post life, but the whole time that we're living, the only consistent thing is this awareness that we are here having an experience. Our bodies change throughout our lives. Our cells renew and change every 7 years or so. Our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions, our roles that we play always change. You can change your name, you could change your sex, you could change your gender. Nothing is constant other than this awareness that we are. And yet it seems rare that we are perfectly within our own presence. We're always somewhere else or connecting or attaching to something else. But the benefit of coming back to this presence that we are, redeveloping and retraining the relationship that we have with our awareness, the benefits are really countless, but I just want to name a few. When we're present, we're more in tune with life because life is happening now. So when we're in the present moment, we're more in touch with what's physically happening. We're more in tune with it, more in harmony with it. We're also more connected not only with life, but with ourself, because right now we are here now, our physical body, our physical mind, everything that we are is only existing within this now moment. So connection to the self, awareness of the moment is required. It also allows us to access flow states. And a state of flow, a lot of people associate with sport or with some kind of performance, whether musical or dance. But we could be in flow with anything as long as we're focused on what we're doing and enter this state of greater ease through which we are acting. It's almost like an effortlessness. And studies show that when we're in a flow state, we could be up to 500% more productive. And that means if you were 500% more productive, I mean, you can only do so much of certain things within a day, but with that much more productivity, you could accomplish in one day what takes the average non-flow person 5 days. That's pretty remarkable. That saves a whole lot of time. So presence, it sounds like a paradox, presence being outside of time actually gives you more time because there's a timelessness to it and a greater sense of, again, ability to accomplish that which we are focused on. Like I mentioned in that first quote about the present moment being where we heal and transform, it's truly the point of true change. And in order to change something, we have to become aware of the pattern. We have to look at what are we thinking and believing, what emotions are we feeling, and what habits or behaviors are occurring as a result. So that cycle right there of thought, emotion, and behavior, it requires presence to break that cycle. If you're not aware that you're in a pattern, you're not going to be able to begin taking the steps to move outside of it. if you're familiar with the law of attraction, whoever speaks about this, whoever I listen to speak about the law of attraction, say presence immediately puts you into a more receptive mode. And I'll expand on the law of attraction just a little bit more, but essentially this natural universal law says that like attracts like, and everything is vibration. And in order to experience something, we must be a vibrational match for it. And oftentimes, we've already created that which is already waiting to manifest into our lives, especially when we think of time being an illusion, but I won't go there. But anyways, when we're in this state of presence and we're in this more receptive mode, it's only because we've released resistance. When we're not attracting or manifesting these things that are in our vibrational escrow, as some would say, it's simply because there's a resistance to receiving it. And only through the moment can we release that resistance and enter this receptive mode to receive that which is already been on its way towards us. And that sounds pretty abstract, but there's a lot of science, a lot of experience that people have that really cater to this idea. And I could go on and on about vibration alone, but tonight is about presence. And like I said previously, but in a different sense, being present helps us release tension and stress, and therefore allows the body to heal itself. So much we have going on in the body is the result of resistance and of tension. The amplification of physical pain that we feel is often because there's an unconscious resistance to the feeling of the pain. And one amazing thing that I learned through the particular coaching tools that I use of breathing into and feeling the sensation of resistance, which we're going to do tonight, just doing that alone, I've witnessed people go from a 9 out of 10 pain to a 3 out of 10 pain. I've witnessed people with an actual fractured foot that felt like their foot was a football drop down to about a 2 pain level, 2 out of 10. And the sensation itself changed. And that's all through the releasing of resistance purely by becoming present with the self. So let's all take a deep breath in right now. Take in a nice breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Feeling the breath in the body and just becoming a little more present right now. So a little more education before I go into some of these tools. And I want to differentiate, and this is what the book The Power of Now really emphasizes, but I think there's still many dimensions to what he's speaking of, that we aren't just this human body with the human brain that's, creating consciousness within itself, but we are this balance, this yin and yang of ego and essence. I'm going to talk about the difference between the two, but ego is form, essentially, and essence is formless. And they're equal opposites, but mutually dependent upon each other. Because we are in form, we must have some aspect of ourselves that is aware that it's a form and identifies with it. So when we talk about ego, it's not just someone who has a really inflated, like overly confident or like grandiose, not that type of ego, but just the part of us that identifies with form. And it was essential to be able to identify as a separate self in order to survive. And so this ego part, it's designed to help us keep our safety. And it does get conditioned throughout our lifetime. So it's important to understand how the ego plays a part in the patterns we have, the habits, the behaviors, the emotions we feel. And these emotions are typically rooted in fear. So we call them fear-based emotions. And they're always the result of an egoic perception. And what I mean is that at one point, there's an experience where we feel unsafe, maybe in some way disconnected, unloved, from this perception of separateness that is of the ego. And this is the part that attaches to things. It attaches to our physical appearance, to material things, to expectations. And it's also the part that resists. So it's important to notice that when we feel resistance, when we feel tension, we could simply become aware, oh, this is my ego and not the true essence of who I am. But having a healthy ego is required. It is required to have an experience that we participate with, right? The road of the monk in the Himalayan mountains who just totally retracts from all life isn't really appropriate for everybody. So in order to participate, we have to have a healthy ego. And my healthy ego has become, I'm a holistic life coach. But if something happens in my life that isn't holistic life coachy, if that makes sense, I don't feel the suffering of that. It's only when we're clinging to that identity that we lose ourself in it. And another example, if I worked as a lawyer, and I was really identified with this lawyer, and it was all about justice. And then my firm goes under. If I was overly attached to that identity, I would feel completely lost. But if I knew who I was deeper than that, this awareness, my true essence, my core self, then that's just a fleeting thing that doesn't pull me down with it. And if anyone has questions about this, I'll leave time to ask that. Because again, the ego is a very abstract thing. It's physical, it's the physical form, but it's very abstract. Now, our essence, on the other hand, is just our natural state, our natural awareness, our core energy, our core frequency, vibration. It's the conscious part of us that is experiencing life. It is the observer, if you will. It is the experiencer, the witness. It's awareness itself. And it's the place from which unfiltered expression comes from. So even though, like I said, that the ego might cling to or have these certain emotions, the expression of these emotions, or just the expression of ourself, is an aspect of our true self, is an aspect of essence, of pure consciousness, because energy is always an expression. There's the energy in the form, there's the particle, there's the wave. I could have said that opposite, but I think you understand what I mean. There's this yin and yang balance of things, and expression is an intimate part of our true self. And it's very much in harmony with love-based emotions. It's in harmony with joy. It's in harmony with excitement, contentment, peace, all the good feelings that you want to feel, you'll find through your essence, as opposed to the ego that might cling to a physical thing as containing that. And what I mean by that is, I might think like, oh, once I make a certain amount of money, or like, oh, once the album of my music makes it big, then I'll feel free, then I'll feel peace. The ego does that. But my essence knows that those feelings that I long for can only be felt now. And this essence, you could call it your spirit. You could really call it anything, but it really can't be named. It can't be concealed in a form because it's formless. But to just give a few more words that go along with it, it's our being. Have you ever heard of someone say, like, to be in a state of being, your beingness? We put ness at a lot of the end of these words when we talk about it. The isness or aliveness. It's also a stillness, because our thoughts are form, and the space that these thoughts occur is actually still and empty. It's an openness. It allows all things, and it loves unconditionally. So we could easily, as we become more aware, we could easily discern between these parts based on how they feel. Is this my ego, or is this my true self? Is this coming from fear, Or is it coming from love? Do you feel expanded or do you feel contracted? So I'm going to begin to go into a few tools now just for deepening presence. And I'm going to open up the floor for some questions, but these tools or just the act of doing anything to deepen your presence, it's very much like any exercise you would use for your physical body. It takes time, it takes repetition, it takes focus. If we are to strengthen our ability to be present, we have to dedicate ourselves to these tools or these exercises, just as you would dedicate yourself to running if you're looking to run a marathon. If you're looking to lift a certain amount of weight, you're not going to get there unless you lift every so often, gradually progressing, deepening this connection to the tool and to yourself. Does anyone have any questions about any of the concepts that I've talked about within this idea that this now moment is the most powerful point of transformation and expression and creativity and all things good? And if you have a question, I think I could see everyone here, so you could either raise your Zoom hand or raise your real hand, and I will see it. Does anyone have any questions about what I just spoke about? Was that all pretty clear? Not too abstract? Good. Okay, so the first tool, and really all these tools, we're simply bringing our attention to that which is here and now. Okay, we're just bringing our attention to that which is here and now. One of the easiest things and the most intimate things to connect with in the moment is the breath. And anyone that I've talked to, more than a few sentences have probably heard me talk about the importance of breath. And there's a number of different breathing techniques. You could count, you could hold, you could do all these different things. But right now we're just going to tune into the way our breath feels in the body. So I invite you now to close your eyes if you're able to. And just take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And remembering that you cannot take a past breath, you cannot take a future breath. You could only take a present breath. And while the mind may wander, you may be having thoughts, that's okay. As often as you could remember, and as long as you could hear my voice saying to do this, bring your attention to the breath. And we're just going to spend a minute here. Notice what the beginning of the inhale feels like. Where do you feel the beginning of the inhale first? Where do you notice the midpoint of the inhale? Where do you feel the peak of the inhale just before letting go? See if you could feel your inhale all the way down in the space in front of the tailbone. Really relaxing your stomach and your hips. See if you could feel that breath all the way in the pelvic floor. Now see if you could feel that expansion work its way up from the pelvic floor into the lower belly. Feeling that breath expand from the pelvic floor to the upper stomach. Taking a deeper breath in, feel that wave of expansion from the pelvic floor into the chest. How about all the way up to the throat? And as you exhale, notice that moment of stillness right before you inhale again. So this was tool one. Stay here, stay dropped in, and just noticing how diverse the experience of the breath can be. Cool on the way in, warm on the way out. Expanding your body all the way from the pelvic floor up to the throat. And another aspect of this now moment that you cannot escape as long as you're living is this physical body. So feeling your feet where they meet the ground. Notice the weight of your feet on the ground. Notice the sensations in your feet that tell you you still have feet and that they were not lost at some point before right now. Feeling the sensations all the way up your legs. Feel that subtle energy that signals to you, legs, check. Feeling the energy in your hands and your arms. Feeling the energy of your face, the sensations. How do you know you have a face? And now noticing that space behind your eyelids. And you might begin to notice here that right there in that space behind the eyelids is just awareness itself. Even if thoughts are occurring. Underneath those thoughts and containing those thoughts, pure awareness, pure presence. And you felt this before, even if you feel like you haven't been in touch with this much lately or in a long time. Remember how you've been just in presence before, as a baby, before you had conscious thoughts, or when you're deeply in tune with what you're doing. Taking a deep breath in, but staying present with the body. And now I'm going to share some sound, and this is the third tool, listening to a sound. So I want you to listen. You'll hear a few different sounds. You'll hear birds, you'll hear water trickling, and you'll hear a synth. And I'm playing a certain frequency that I'll share about. But right now, just listen to the trickling water. It's very subtle. See if you could hear just the trickling water. Now try to see how many birds you can decipher. How many different chirping patterns do you hear? Now just listen to the music, the vibrations of sound. Those steady notes. And if there's a part of you distracting you from listening, if there's a part of you resistant to sitting still, to being still, just notice that part. Notice the part of you that's having thoughts. And then come back to the sound. Okay, take a deep breath in. Let it go. Breathing fully in, fully out. Soaking in just a little bit more of this presence. You could begin to wiggle the fingers and the toes, flutter your eyes back open. You could come back to the moment of the space that you're in. And so that might have been a little challenging. It might have been easy, but I think at the very least, it was enlightening to the fact that when we bring our attention to these parts of ourselves, the breath, the body, to the sounds happening around us, we become more still. We become more present. And this inner silence, it may only be for a moment, this inner stillness, it may only be a fraction of a second. But as you practice coming back to this state of presence just with yourself, that moment of stillness expands, it deepens, it becomes quieter, it becomes more void, as the Buddhist might say. And all that's left is you, is your awareness of that stillness, is your presence with that moment. That's all that's left. And there's a very significant, I find, or deep spiritual connection to stillness. Some people go as far to say that being still or being in silence, in this silence, is the closest you could come to feeling the oneness of all things in the human form, to feel that unity that you have with everything, to feel that oneness. The source from which all of us emanate was originally, and I'm not saying this from experience, I haven't been there, but this concept that it all came from stillness, from emptiness. And that's how the solar system was created even. It's not, when we look up at space, we see all this stuff, and the in between the stars isn't just nothing. There is nothing, but there's also just gas. And this, from that nothingness, there's gas, and the gas condenses. And when it condenses enough, it forms a sun. To me, that's incredible. From nothingness, a sun forms. And every so often, one of these suns or stars are close enough to another sun, and when it explodes, its matter gets caught in the orbit of the other. So we are very literally stardust, and before that, just nothing. And I think like that might sound daunting, but to me that's such a beautiful thing, that everything can come from absolute stillness and silence and nothingness. Does anyone have any questions about those three tools, as far as like how long should I do this? What should I do if I am having thoughts? Any questions before I go into the next tool? You have a question?
Yeah, I do. What if you fall asleep while you're being present? Does that have a meaning?
I think it just means that you're very deeply relaxed
Okay.
and you're reaping the benefits of that meditation.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes, you're very welcome. Does anyone else have a question before I start asking you guys some questions? We're good? So, question number one, and I want you to write in the chat. When do you feel most present? Oh, Andrew, do you have a question? Okay. Sorry, I thought I saw your hand waving. So go ahead, put in the chat, when do you feel most present, most aware, most in the now? I don't see the chat on my, do you guys have chat? Do you guys see the chat? Oh, here we go. When you first wake up in the morning and you begin your meditation, yes, that's a great time to meditate, because we're coming out of that sleep state, and before the momentum of the day gets going, to drop into that stillness. It's a beautiful way to set the tone. Every moment, I love that. And that's the place to aim for, to have present moment awareness throughout the day. Yes, meditation, absolutely. And that's all meditation is. It's not becoming empty, it's just becoming present with whatever's present, whatever's here. Anyone else? And now I'll mention the contrary, because tonight's about not only presence, but yin and yang. Walking in the woods, yes, nature is such a vibrationally powerful place to become more present. The sounds, everything is energy. The trees, the ground, everything is giving off energy. So when you're immersed in the woods, you're going to become more present. Yes, some psychedelics could do that, can certainly make you more present, because everything is so intensified, everything is so amplified. And some of the endorphins that are happening during a psychedelic experience are also very much available to us in deep states of meditation. And the sound that I was sharing with you guys is actually a specific frequency. It was 8 hertz, which is roughly where theta brain waves occur. And we typically go into theta when we're in deep meditation or when we're going to sleep. But we also get into that theta state when we're in a flow state. So even when you're in a wakeful but very focused, if you're in performance, you get into that zone of running, that zone that you get into, the brain goes into theta. So I was purposefully playing that for you to give the brain something to match to. So next question. What do you feel blocks you from being present? What do you feel gets most in the way of being present? And I'll give a quick example. Me just being a forward thinker and a part of me, my ego, wanting to make sure that I'm ready for whatever is coming. It may not be stressful thoughts, but there's always a little voice that's always anticipating what's going to come until I remind myself I don't have to think about that right now. I could be perfectly present. So go ahead, share with me. What do you feel keeps you? What's the most dense block keeping you from presence? Yeah. So when you're in the to-do list, that's the to-do list. You're thinking of the future, right? You're in the frequency of the future. So naturally, you're going to be pulled at least a little bit out of the moment. And we could very much feel when we're not in the moment. Because if you think about it, if our body and our mind is here now, but then our thoughts go out ahead of us, even though time's not really linear like we think, there's a stretch between where our focus is and where we currently are. That's what really creates that tension in an abstract thought form way. Linus is not being able to quiet the thoughts. So yeah, so sometimes the thoughts are just going. And that's why it's so important to have a practice that temporarily distracts you from the thoughts. And one tool that I'm going to go into a little more deeply in a later workshop is a tool to break the flow of thoughts. So, excuse me, sometimes it's hard to just keep the attention on the breath, on the body. We immediately get pulled back into the mind. But if you then start to instead give your attention to things you're grateful for, you replace whatever thoughts you're having with gratitude thoughts, positive thoughts, and it's not toxic positivity, but just realizing, what am I grateful for that I have right now? Even the smallest thing. I have this filtered water that remineralizes itself at the end through the filter. And Lorraine showed me these water filters. When I drink this water, I'm so grateful that I have clean, mineralized water in my home. What a gift that is, right? So when you could think of those little things like, oh, the window's open and it's October, I'm saving money on gas and electric, right? It's like, wow, that's beautiful. So if you're having a hard time becoming aware of these things that are in the moment, like your breath, your body, the sounds, start refocusing your thoughts on things you're grateful for. And I hear financial worry. So yeah, financial worry is is from the ego, the innocent part of us that wants to make sure we're safe. And we're in a world where most of the time we need some money to meet our needs, right? And there's this concern that we might not have enough. So the ego will do that. The ego will put your attention like, hey, this moment might not last as it is. We have to figure out how we're going to make more money. And the paradox to that is that the more present we could be, the more creative we will be, the more in that receptive mode, like I mentioned, we will be in to receive creative thoughts that can and will lead to more financial success, more financial security, as crazy as that sounds. And this last comment from Pratibha, great question. I feel stressed if we continue to focus on the negatives. Yeah. Yeah. So this is exactly what the next tool is. And ultimately, we can't be anywhere but the present moment. And that's why we feel stressed when we're not here. Or when we think about the past, that's typically when we feel depressed. So our next tool now is simply to bring our attention to the sensation of resistance. So whether you're having anxious thoughts or we're noticing a negative feeling, emotion, and negative, I'm not saying it's a bad, but it's uncomfortable. There's some tension. Simply bring your attention, withdraw your evaluation from that thing that was stressing you out or keeping you from presence in the first place, and bring your attention to what's being triggered inside. What energy is causing the discomfort that's keeping you from the present moment? So go ahead and close your eyes now. So think about the thing that keeps you from being present. Think about that thing. Just for a few seconds, think about finances, your to-do list, those thoughts that never stop, the negatives. And now bring your attention to the body and notice where you feel tension. And we're just going to stay with this tension, even if it's a little uncomfortable. We're going to stay with this sensation of discomfort for just 90 seconds. And I'll begin to ask you questions about it and just answer them in your mind. What's the size of this sensation? Where in your body is it located and how big is it? What's the shape of it? Does it have distinctive edges or is it blurred? Is it jagged, smooth? How dense does it feel? Is it as dense as rock or styrofoam? Is it a cloud? Notice the density. 30 more seconds. And does this sensation have a color to your mind's eye? What's the color of this energy, or is it just void? Breathing into the sensation, feeling it as much as you could possibly feel it. Breathing into it, feeling your breath expand around the sensation. Take a deep breath in, let it go, and you could come on back. So, emotions, which are triggered by our thoughts, our perceptions, our emotions occur as very physical experiences of energy. And there's chemicals involved. There's neurotransmitters, our nervous system. There's this actual physical thing that's happening when we're in an emotional state. And research shows, I forget the name of the woman and I forget the name of the book, but I will share that with you at some point. She found that just 90 seconds of feeling the sensation of an emotion is enough to help it process and clear. So if you could become aware enough that I'm being triggered right now, and you could say, okay, 90 seconds, I'll set a timer. I'm just going to breathe into this and feel it. and it will, at the very least, begin to become less dense. Even if it doesn't disappear fully, it'll become a little less dense, a little more comfortable, and it'll begin to clear. And if it doesn't go away, it's because you're looping back in thought. That's the only reason. You're going back. It could be a lot of an emotion that you can only feel so much of at once. Yes, that's true. But if you don't notice any change at all, even just a release of resistance to the resistance, it's simply because the mind is looping back in the story that caused the emotion in the first place. And it may just take time to build that strength, build that awareness, the endurance, really. There's an endurance to maintaining a present moment awareness. And Andrew shared here, every moment as of late, I can't tell if I'm in the past or the future, but it doesn't feel present, or maybe it's just the first time I'm feeling present without tools, and so it's new and haven't been able to describe it. Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate. And you could, but here's the catch, you could become present with a thought that is elsewhere. As soon as you notice that you're having thoughts that aren't present, you're present. As soon as you notice you're having a thought that's causing an uncomfortable feeling, you're deepening your presence. As you're becoming aware of it, you're shining a light. The awareness itself, consciousness itself, it's illuminating the awareness. You're shining your light on the light of your attention on this thought, and you're becoming present. Oh, 90-second pause. Thank you. Say, very good. Thank you. So Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. And I might know someone else too. It could be another person as well. That does sound familiar, but I'm not 100% certain. Um, who here felt a shift in the sensation just by breathing into it? Raise your hand if you felt a shift in the way the sensation in the body felt. Good, thank you. Now raise your hand if you couldn't feel the sensation in the body. Raise your hand if you felt the sensation in the body. Yeah, so it may not move right away. Ideally 90 seconds, and that requires focus, but my encouragement, keep bringing your attention to the sensations. All right, guys, this has been beautiful so far. I hope these tools have been helpful. Um, there's 4 of them, but the first 3 were all just becoming present with the breath, the body, and sound to deepen that awareness that will expand. And that 4th tool was, and that could be used in the same setting, but you're really just feeling whatever that emotion is that comes up. And so I want to make sure I comment on this now before I answer any other questions, or if anyone wants any laser coaching in regards to becoming more present or how to deepen your practice of presence. But this type of call, this workshop where I talk about a topic, drop you into your bodies meditatively, assisting with certain tools, this is going to be occurring once a month. Some of you know I've also been hosting breath work. I just started doing it virtually once a month. I have it in person. And I'm also doing weekly meditative movement. And I'm in the process of building this consistent program of this and building a community around this. Building a place, an environment for people to repeatedly come to, whether live or through the replay, to deepen their presence and to build and expand their toolbox. Your toolbox of being able to free your mind, free and express your emotions, and free yourself in your life to live exactly as you want to live to the beat of your own drum, to move and dance to your own rhythm, to sing your own melody. This is the environment that I'm creating, and I'm going to share a link. So this is to what you'll be linked to, or what you'll be brought to through this link, is a Patreon. So I'm new to Patreon, but here you'll find different options to either just be in the loop of music that I release, conscious music that I release, meaning it's meant to expand our awareness of these different life principles. Um, What's also included are books that I'll be writing, that I'm in the process of writing, different PDFs with these tools broken down, and also just different concepts that I've married together in a cohesive, creative perception to deepen, again, your own understanding, as well as just general resources for um, harmonic eating, I'll call it, supplements, different protocols to fine tune your body. So I'm going to share this here with you now. If I can find it. Here we go, copy link. I'm going to share this in the chat. And then if anyone has a question, please raise your physical hand or your Zoom hand. So there's that link. Yes, Lorraine, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. So I speak fairly often of your work to people that I meet, and I would like them to have an opportunity to learn more about you. And
Hmm.
right now, I'm sorry, I'm just copying this link that you gave us. What would I share with them, Eric? This link or?
Yes, so you could share the link.
Mhm.
What they'll find there, I have for even people that aren't a part of the community, there'll be replays of different things that I've done. I'm going to have the replay of this on there for free. There's a little bio of me on there. Um, I'll also be linking my website through there. So if they want to dive like in deeper into my story, my bio, my services and whatnot, it should all be through this link that you'll be able to find. But thank
Perfect.
you
And
so
what about,
much.
yeah, you're very, very welcome. What about the breath work that we did a couple of weeks ago? Can I share that link, or will you have it like included in this link you just provided?
Yes, so I need to post it still, but it will be because this Patreon's kind of like a social media that I can have posts that you could see, and you'll see my sharing of the meditative movement and the breathwork replay. So yes, that'll be the place. And thank you for reminding me of that because I didn't do that.
Perfect.
Add breath replay. And thank you so much for sharing this work because that's really the best form of marketing, right? For someone to have this experience and then to share it with someone else, and we already have this trust established. The ideal is they'll be like, oh, yeah, I am interested in experiencing something like that. And this is the ripple effect that we have when we share the best that we know how to share. So,
Yeah.
yes. So, thank you so much. Okay, have that note down. Does anyone else have a question in regards to their practice with being present, the book, The Power of Now, the ego, um, the the trickster? Does anyone have any questions about anything that we just reviewed here tonight, or about Patreon and becoming a part of the community? And one other thing, if for people that do work with me one-on-one, there are some people here now. For people that work with me one-on-one, have free access to the community while they're in their container, while they're in their package. So that's like another perk of doing the one-on-one work, not just really getting deep and specific into your vision and your goals and your particular belief system and emotional stuckness and habits, but it includes this environment and this community to really deepen the practice and to hold each other accountable. That's really the thing. If we don't hold ourselves accountable and we don't have someone else to hold us accountable, it's really easy to say, eh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that some other time. Like, I don't have to be present right now. Um, so to have this group a group of people on the same journey, it really amplifies everything you're looking to do. When people see your vision with you, in other words, it really locks down the vibration for people to expand and heal together. Any more questions? Thank you so much for everyone's patience. We're good on time. This is the best I've ever done time-wise for a workshop, by the way. And it's because I purposefully didn't overly prepare. Once I overly prepare, I get way too much detail. So this, I'm very happy with this. Any other questions? You could raise your physical hands or your Zoom hands. Alrighty, my friends. Do you have something else, Lorraine?
Yeah, I do. So I watched that you had suggested a movie about grounding. I forget when you and I were talking. So do you know about that and the process of that?
A movie about grounding?
Yeah, or so you stand on the earth without any shoes on, and you and I, we were doing movements together in your movement class. You
Yes.
do that barefoot. How long would you do that for, I wonder?
So I would just pair that with whatever time you're
Earthing,
able.
yes. Earthing, yes.
Yeah, yes. I would pair that with any activity that you can.
Okay.
So it'll be a little more challenging when there's snow on the ground, right, or when it's cold out. But whether you're doing yoga, you're doing some Tai Chi or Qigong, you're meditating, to put your bare feet on the grass helps you become more present, excuse me, first and foremost, but it also, there's an electrical transfer, believe it or not. The Earth has this electrical magnetic field to it that when we are barefoot touching it, there is an exchange, and also microbial exchange. Um, we get good bacteria from the ground that joins with our bacteria. So yes, so grounding, if you could do that with your meditative practices or your movement practices, or I like to just do it when I take my dog out back. I'll just look at the sun a little bit, not directly at it. I'll listen to the birds. I'm becoming present and with my bare feet in the grass. That's a huge game changer. It was for me, definitely, in feeling not just more present and grounded, but also feeling safe. And there's an intimate connection between feeling grounded, feeling safe, our root chakra, the earth, the physical, being in our body. That groundedness is very powerful for the present moment. So thank you for asking that question. That was really powerful. Awesome. If no one has any other questions, um, I thank you so much for joining me tonight. I've been excited to talk about this topic. Um, the topic of presence, I'm including in a four-part series in particular. Um, but that'll be a part of the community. So this four-part series is the four keys to freedom. And I purposely made the four keys four P's, and that's presence, perception. We talked about perception, but we're really going to dive into perception the next time in November. Then it's going to be passion and purpose. These are the four P's, and I'm in the process of creating a PDF that starts to touch on these topics to begin painting the picture. And then within each workshop, I'm going to dive deeper into each P or each key. Awesome.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Lorraine, and you're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining me as you have been so consistently. Thank you, everyone else, for coming here this evening, for giving yourself this hour to become more present and hopefully add some useful tools to your toolbox. And they might sound really simple, but I could tell you, after going through a year-long coaching certification program, you're very welcome, Andrew, after doing one-on-one coaching and mentorships and going to Reiki and all these different things, you're very welcome. After doing all these different things, learning all these different tools and reading all these different books and breath work, still the most powerful thing has been my ability to be present with myself. No matter what tool, no matter what school of thought, no matter what you're doing, if you could deepen your presence, you will deepen your power. You will empower yourself, your creativity, your authentic freedom. Everything else progresses from presence. So, even though it sounded simple, don't overlook it. Make it make it a practice now with a capital N. You're very welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me tonight. I'm going to stop this recording.